Alrighty, time to talk about testing, everyone. So the title of the talk is DPDK Continuous Integration Testing Labs, New Tools, Lab Test Coverage, and DTS. That's the DPDK Test Suite. My name is Patchwork Robb. I'm a Technical Service Manager at the UNH InterOperability Lab. I work on hosted resources and testing services for open source projects. So that includes DPDK and the DPDK Community Lab.
Hi, my name is Adam Hassick, and I'm a graduate research assistant at the UNH IOL, and I work on the DPDK CI project, among other things, and I work on, maintaining the back-end infrastructure, ranging all the way to helping to maintain the scripts in DPDK CI and the CI site that we run.
Yep, so Adam spends a lot of time working on our hardware, working on our internal scripting, our sysadmin work, our Jenkins scripts, and he's also making lots of contributions to the DPDK CI repo, which is a repository that's used across multiple labs for standing up CI testing. So I should give a quick background before we get rolling, because I know most of you probably know, but I see some new faces in the room. So when you submit a patch to DPDK, we perform, or the CI community performs continuous integration testing, so per patch testing, and reports that to the public mailing list. And this gets picked up by Patchwork. So if you've ever looked at DPDK Patchwork, you'll see some checks arriving alongside patches. And there's a few publicly reporting labs that are doing this. The UNH Community Lab is one of these, and it's funded by the DPDK project and aims to serve the members, the DPDK members and community. So kind of the goal of this talk is to start off and talk about some of the common tools and resources which apply kind of across the CI labs for developers and just across the CI labs. And then I want to talk a little bit about some of the updates at the UNH Community Lab specifically in terms of test coverage, new hardware, some of the DTS initiatives, and what our goals are, etc. So Adam, take it away.
So 1 or 2 years ago in the past, right, if there was an issue with the testing, like maybe we applied your patch on the wrong branch or something along those lines, you would have to reach out to someone at the IOL, and that was often an inconvenience. So in order to sort of work around this, we've outlined a process to submit a recheck request, which is essentially a method to have a CI lab rerun testing on a context that they've submitted to your patch, right? Or a check. So we offer 2 methods of doing this. Option A is you reply to a patch or a cover letter with this recheck request tag, right? And you provide a list of test cases, and we just run those test cases using the sources that you originally submitted, right? This is essentially like the lower cost option because it doesn't involve all of the CI, whereas option B will reapply your patch onto an updated version of the source code, and then it will rerun all of the tests. And so the script for running this is currently available on the DPDK CI repository, so you can check it out.
Yeah, and just real quick, so kind of this option B, the use case, there are a few use cases, and I think you kind of spelled it out, but let's say the DPDK tree is in a bad state, and you submitted your patch, and you got a bad result not due to your patch. You may want to have your patch reapplied for that reason. It may be that your patch didn't apply, but the state of the tree has changed, so you just want it to be tried again via the latest DPDK. Can't remember the third example you just gave, but anyhow, oh yeah, or of course we use this script that tries to guess the right DPDK next branch to apply on, but it's only a guess, and if it's wrong, you can override that behavior, and we've seen people have the need to override that behavior and indicate the correct branch in the past. But yeah, if you're looking to stand up CI testing, definitely try and leverage this script, because we try and stay common across the labs in terms of what we're running off of where possible. Sorry for jumping in there.
And another project that we've been working on is depends on support. So the community has put forward a format to declare a dependency between a patch and a series or two patches, right? And the way that this is done is you add a little label to your commit message or cover letter content, and a parser will sort of pick up on that and then apply the patch or series that you're referring to before it applies your patch or series, right? So currently, the support is not really uniform across all the labs. And I sort of saw this as a feature that maybe other projects might be interested in, so I chose to implement this as a feature in the Patchwork server itself, right? And so I've added to their parser and their database and their API to support this, and this sort of lays out the groundwork for supporting this in the future. So I've prepared an example using a patch from the mailing list. So in green highlighted here, you can see the depends on tag, and it uses a URL to refer to the dependent series. And this is detected by the parser and then made available to the API. And the API can make use of this information, and it will apply the patches in the order that they appear here, which is the same order that they appear in the submitted email. So in order to implement this, we've had to request a change to the existing format to use the web URL or the message ID instead of the current format, which uses the type of object and like the value of the big auto field for that object. And that is something that the Patchwork project is trying to move away from. And this feature is not added yet. It's not currently available. We hope it will be included in the next Patchwork release, and then it will become available to the developers once we upgrade our Patchwork instance.
We're working with the Patchwork maintainer, and it's smooth sailing so far. It's just under review, so looks positive. All right, so moving it over to the community lab specifically, I want to touch on a few things that are new that some of the students over there from UNH that we brought up have been working on this year. So we have started turning on some testing for projects which consume DPDK. So basically, we've started with some simple stuff, so OvS and SPDK compile testing. So to be clear, this is per patch testing on DPDK patches as they come in. We'll apply your patch and then try and build using, for instance, the OvS DPDK latest branch. If it doesn't build, we report a warn, not a fail, because it's not really testing DPDK, but if you're breaking a downstream project, it's worth looking into. So that's kind of what we've stood up so far. There's more we can do here. We've dry run running the OvS and SPDK unit tests. So that's kind of a matter of engaging with the community and figuring out whether that value is kind of worth the system resources. So we kind of are going to bring that back to the CI community calls that happen every other Thursday. And we've also talked on the CI calls about starting up some OvS performance tests. So that would be basically running side by side on the bare metal servers that we use to run our DPDK single core forwarding performance testing currently. But again, it's just a matter of engaging with the community and figuring out how we can best provide value in this space going forward. All right, so moving on to the next thing. So we've started publishing code coverage reports on our DPDK Community Lab dashboard. So a little background, DPDK provides a DPDK test app for running unit tests, which you can trigger via Meson. That's the easiest way if you want to run a whole suite. So there's a few suites, and we're running the fast test suite across a bunch of different environments at the community lab on a per patch basis. The point was raised at the previous DPDK Summit last year that it's all well and good if you submit a patch and it's passing all of the unit tests, but how comprehensive are their unit tests? So this is one way that we can start to get a visibility of that, so we can start to see what is the code coverage, how many lines of the various files are being touched by the unit testing. So you can go on to lab.dpdk.org and see our once per month code coverage reports that we put there. So hopefully that helps give a little visibility to the coverage and can show over time if the coverage is getting better or worse. So there's a little visual there, but you can see the full thing if you download it. A few more things about the dashboard. So some of you know we've got this lab.dpdk.org community lab dashboard that has all of the per patch reporting information that we send over to Patchwork, but it also has more stuff. It has all of the test logs. It has periodic tests on LTS and next branches, stats visualizations, and more. And we've been working on some quality of life fixes, including opening the test log artifacts in the dashboard. We got the feedback last year that it's kind of annoying to go on the dashboard and download it and extract it and then open up the logs locally. It really should be like a quick thing so that developers can save some time, and it should be a streamlined process. So we've added that. Just click open test logs now, and you'll be looking at the test logs. And we've worked on improving the performance of the dashboard as we aggregate test results recently in the past month or two, because kind of as our test matrix grew and grew and grew over the years, the dashboard performance began to suffer, so we've started to claw that back. You still might have to wait a few seconds, but it's much better than it was at this point last year or even 2 months ago. And we also added a TS Factory navbar item. So real quick, this is some work that was requested last year and we completed like last December. But TS Factory is a testing framework, and they provided DPDK eth-dev suite. We can't run it on a per patch basis because it takes hours and hours and hours to run, but we run it once a month on an Intel i40E and ConnectX-5 card on ARM servers, and we can expand that coverage if the community is interested. Again, this comes back to engaging with the community and the conversations that we have on these CI testing calls. There's definitely the capacity to expand the coverage, and we'll get into that next because we have an expanding test bed. So for some background, you can't see it in the picture here, but we have like a 48U rack that we have full of servers. We finished filling it up in like January of this year with one donation that came in. And those are kind of like the servers that came in over like from 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, et cetera. And they've enabled all of our testing, but our test bed was limiting in some ways, in the past year. So we started a conversation with the community, with the DPDK project, and with the member companies to see if we could refresh the test bed a little bit and open up a second server rack, which we are doing. So the members have combined with the DPDK project to add some AMD Genoa servers, some Intel Xeon 4th generation servers with integrated QuickAssist crypto devices, more AMD servers, a Xeon 3rd generation server. That allowed us to enable the Intel E810 100 gig card for performance testing, which was super awesome, and more. And an ARM Grace server will be showing up in a matter of days, and that's going to slide right in between those groups of servers right there. These additions have been critical in enabling us to turn on performance testing for, again, the Intel E810, the NVIDIA Mellanox ConnectX 6 and ConnectX 7s, which we just weren't able to bring online with what we had previously. So thanks to the member companies and the DPDK project, that has helped us so much in terms of advancing coverage recently, and going forward, we're going to have a lot more latitude there. Just to get into a couple more things that have been added. So we did bring in a PCI QuickAssist crypto card, an Intel 8970, which we're hosting on an ARM Ampere server. And so this is the first time that the community lab is running cryptodev perf testing on a per patch basis in the UNH lab. So that's really great, and just toggling back, this is also something that we can run on those integrated QuickAssist devices that came with some of the new servers. So we're just going to be able to continue adding to this part of our test coverage. And then we also brought in a Marvell CN10K DPU, and we've started running some functional testing on that via DTS. There's more coverage that we can add there, so we're going to keep plugging away on that. And we also started some zlib PMD, VDEV compression PMD testing in the past year. We're running that on x86 and ARM servers, and that's just a compression test based on a generic Calgary corpus payload, which is just a typical compression test payload. So I want to talk a little bit about the DTS goals at the community lab and the initiative we have. You're going to hear a lot more tomorrow about DTS from Luca, who's going to talk about writing a test suite and how to set up DTS and how to run DTS. At the community lab, we've been involved with working on this in the past year, and we've had a specific initiative to extend ethdev coverage. So a little background, there's a legacy DTS framework, and there's a new DTS framework that is existing in the DPDK repo, and that's what we're working on here, and that's what we're trying to extend ethdev coverage for. So we've been adding utility functions to that framework to help with the common functions associated with writing a test suite, and we've been porting over some of the existing test suites from that legacy DTS framework and looking for new coverage which we can provide. Kind of the state of play today is that there's only a scatter capability ethdev test suite on DPDK main, but we've got a bunch of test suites which are up on the mailing list right now and should be going through next DTS and then pulled into main expeditiously. So that includes MacFilter, VLAN, MTU update, jumbo frames, ethertype, etc. All right, and then just speaking about how we're using this and how we want to be using this. So we're running this in in our CI at the community lab right now in Jenkins, which is our automation system. We're not reporting any of that. We're still working on a couple more framework updates which are going to make using this framework easier in a CI lab context, and trying to get some of those other patches moved through next DTS to main, but we're making good progress there. And the goal is to discontinue usage of the legacy DTS framework for ethdev testing by the end of the year. So there's a couple things that's going to help us with doing that. There's a new DPDK Next branch, Next DTS, which we're currently using for merging TDS framework updates and new patch series, which will be, again, pulled to DPDK main. And that also sets the stage for a DPDK goal for the end of the year that we kind of discussed with Tech Board at the conclusion of 2023 and agreed on, which is that once this ethdev coverage is validated and in DPDK main, we can add a new requirement for DPDK development that as somebody submits an ethdev patch that adds a capability, they should submit a test suite or an additional test case, which is validating that capability, say. So that's kind of something we're targeting. So yeah, kind of an eclectic list of things. There's more. I mean, we've been standing up VMs for some specific testing. We set up a MSVC Windows Server 2022 VM for Windows's or Microsoft's DPDK roadmap. It's a new FreeBSD VM and a bunch of other stuff I'm not thinking of right now. But that's some of the stuff that we've been working on and some of our goals going forward. Now, I just want to do a little shout out for getting involved in CI testing. So we do have meetings every Thursdays at 1300 UTC. The topic alternates between CI lab testing and DTS. If you want to get involved, ask to be invited to the call on the CI mailing list or the dev mailing list. There's a couple Slack channels that relate to testing that you can also comment on. Bugzilla can be used for tracking bugs or ideas or features which you think should be added. And the final thing I'll say is we're always looking to get more parties out there to host their own labs. So if you're interested in hosting a lab, the DPDK CI repo, which holds these common scripts, will help you, and the CI group will help you. So that is pretty much it. Unless you had anything, I guess we can open it up for Q&A.
Can you hear me?
Thanks, Patrick. I think it's great to see very good progress here. I think the target of completing ETH dev by the end of this year is really great. I just hope it happens. So now one question on the code coverage. I think it was pretty clear from there that we need to improve the unit test cases to get a try and target at least 90+% code coverage. I think this could be one of the items for coding challenge, when we say that, hey, can we get the code coverage improved for some of these libraries?
Yeah, well, it's an interesting question, and that's a good idea about the challenge. I mean, a couple things. This is only for the fast tests. I guess the group at large, the DPDK group at large, can decide what is acceptable in terms of coverage coming from the fast tests. So I think with that test suite specifically, there's a balancing act that's happening between speed and coverage.
I see. Okay.
So I'm sure the coverage could be improved, and I think that's kind of the whole point behind this effort. But I don't want to just say, oh, everything's terrible, it needs to be dramatically improved. Like I think the broader group can have a conversation about that.
Sure. So why is this being run only once per month?
I apologize?
Why is this being run only once per month?
It could be run more often. Honestly, I guess my view is that the churn in terms of test suite or DPDK test additions was such that once per month was a fine cadence for seeing the differences, and maybe, that was my view. But we definitely can run it more often if it's of interest to the group. So please let us know. Again, it's always that thing of like, we're always trying to provide the best coverage, but feedback from the community is like the best thing for us. So if people want to see this once a week or once a day, then please say so, and we'll make that change.
Yeah, I think it should happen on the patch, right? Let's say somebody submits a patch on LPM, then we need to see whether the code coverage improved, degraded. If it degraded, then we need to ask for test cases in that patch.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I think there's a little bit of, I think there's a small cost to maintaining those artifacts, and a small cost to, I don't know off the top of my head right now what the what like the duration is, or like the processing cost of producing these reports is, and whether it's high, say, and if it's high, that would prevent us from doing that on a per patch basis. So we might be able to facilitate it. So I guess that's something that we can look at, and if it's pretty cheap, then we can add that.
Hi, yeah, my question is kind of similar. How do we get notification right now, or how would you see in future us getting notification of when these numbers go down? So yeah, I get the overall objective is we want to see the coverage numbers go up. But I think the whole idea, I think per patch testing would be brilliant for this. I don't know if we need to see all the numbers, but we really want to see warnings if we're adding stuff and then our coverage numbers are going down the way. It's perhaps more critical than anything. So maybe any thoughts on this, how we might get to that sort of idea?
Yeah, you want to take it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is doable. Like, we could treat the coverage on main as a baseline, right? And then if the if the difference between main or a patch like is negative, right? Like if the coverage goes down, then we report it as a warn, as its own like check on Patchwork, maybe.
So it's definitely possible. It's a bit of work, like anything, so it's just a matter of getting the feedback from the community. Do you want us to put in, I mean, however, some tens of hours of work to set up this system in place of something else? Because, of course, there's always an opportunity cost, but it sounds like there's some interest here, so maybe we can add that as a topic for the next CI meeting. And look at adding such a, I don't want to say watchdog, but such an ability to compare against the baseline for coverage and report if things are going downhill.
Yeah, hi, it's Aaron from Red Hat. And I just wanted to mention that one difficulty in simply reporting that numbers have gone down is that when we're sort of building support for code coverage in, that will track in things like driver code as like total numbers. So we really have to, when we're doing these reports, we have to kind of isolate which libraries we want to track and measure those that way. We can't just do it as like an overall thing, because we don't run driver tests necessarily on every system. We don't, there's some drivers someone might contribute that we don't have hardware support for, and that will kind of drive numbers down. So we have to be a little bit careful about just blanket turning stuff on.
Absolutely. So yeah, we would, thanks, that's a wonderful point. We would want to gather that list beforehand in terms of implementing that. Obviously, or I guess it's not obvious if you haven't downloaded this, but the code coverage artifacts come with like very machine readable versions of it. So as long as we had that list, it would be pretty simple for us to obviously ignore the drivers or whatever we don't want to take into consideration.
Okay, we've got a couple of questions on the Zoom from people there. So I'll start actually with the second one. So can we have something in the DPDK documentation somewhere to hold all this information and allow patch submitters or maintainers to run these tests as or when required? Is the question. What do we have in the documentation?
Do you believe this is in reference to DPDK test app or the unit tests? So there's existing documentation.
Well, how about you just tell us what documentation already is there for us DPDK developers to look at for working with the various tests that you guys have?
Sure. Yeah, so of course, one of the goals with the community lab is always that if we run a test, it can be run locally by the developer for so many reasons. And of course, anytime we report something bad about a test, the developer immediately is going to be like, okay, how do I recreate this? How do I do this locally? For DPDK test, I mean, there's existing documentation on the DPDK docs for how to run the app, either directly or via Meson. And I don't know where, but I know that the DPDK docs links over to Meson and explains how you can run the various test suites. So, maybe on the community lab side, we could provide a page, or on the DPDK docs, we could provide some information that more explicitly explains what the fact that the fast test suite is being run, how you can run that yourself, and how you can produce the code coverage reports.
Yeah. The other question in that area actually is what is the recheck requests and how to use that. Is that all documented in the DPDK documentation, or are there plans to do that?
I think there might.
So it's documented on the dpdk.org testing page, and that explains which labs are currently supporting which features and the syntax for submitting the rechecks on your patches or cover letters. But Adam knows more about the other.
No, I was going to ask you a question.
The rebase stuff is, Adam asked, is the rebase stuff up on the website? And I'm 99% sure that it is. But if it isn't, I'll add it.
Right. And then final question from the Zoom is around the OvS testing. You mentioned about doing compile testing. Are there any plans to go beyond that with OvS testing?
Yeah. Yeah, so like I said, we did run through the OvS unit tests. Again, this is something we want to bring to the community and figure out, do you want this? And then Aaron has raised running OvS performance tests on our bare metal hardware. So the good news is, like I said, we've got more bare metal hardware than we had recently. So we certainly have the capacity for doing this stuff. It's just a matter of engaging with the DPDK community about it, the OvS community, trying to stand up this testing, making sure it's stable, making sure there aren't false positives. So that's that is just an idea right now, but I think that if we get the green light from the community and we hear this is valuable, then I think we're going to talk with the tech board and say, can this go into the work that we're planning for next year? So hopefully I'm standing here in a year talking about how we're running OvS performance testing, maybe. So again, it always comes back to having these conversations on the mailing list. So please join. I'll be on the call at 9 a.m. Eastern on Thursday. So if you're not traveling, please join us. Although it'll be DTS week, but anyhow, sorry.
Thomas, NVIDIA. No question, but I like talking. So, if we really want to increase coverage in testing, maybe there is a solution. If you provide the names of the developers increasing the coverage on, I don't know, an API or web page, then we can prioritize these authors so there are other patches to be merged. Then you see the coverage will increase.
That sounds like a smart way of approaching it.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you.